escape. The group plans on how to get out of Camelin to the Eye of the World and decides that the best way is through the Way via a Waygate. Will they escape? What will they find there? This and more coming right up.
Hello, we are the Doctors Who podcast. My name is Chris.
And I'm Chip.
I'm Brian.
And we are covering chapters 43 and 44 of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. We are approaching the end. I don't think we have a lot of book left. I don't know if you can see the bookmark. Can you?
I think we have just
a little bit there,
9 or 10 chapters.
Yeah.
Left.
So why don't we jump right in and discuss the ways.
So the ways are it's a great plot device when you kind of have this world that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as Jordan creates it and fleshes it out. You know, to get the characters from point A to point B or places that they need to be, you know, other than just transporting them, which we may learn about something like that later. The ways are such a cool way to do it. They just feel like this web of these, you know, bridges and islands, and it just feels like almost like wormholes in space where you just, you know, can do these quick travels from point A to point B. But I love the history of the ways. So we learned that they were made by male channelers, that the Waygates kind of existed just outside the steadings, and then in the Ogier groves that they put into the places that they created or the cities that they helped build. It's just, the ways are just a really, really cool implementation of Jordan's to help, you know, fully flesh out this world.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty similar to my interpretation of it as well. I liked the continuation of the generosity of Master Gil, you know, being able to get them out of the city through kind of some back channels and getting into the ways themselves, which, you know, we had talked about similar things in other books. You know, we talked about this with some of Sanderson's works, but yeah, I thought this was like almost like wormholes between spaces. You know, like the space between two different points. You know, it was just almost burrowing through and finding shortcuts, and I thought that was kind of a nice way of getting people quickly from A to B. Although I did kind of like the way that it was described, where it was almost boring for Rand as he was going through. I kind of thought of that like, you know, we live in the center of the U.S., and it's kind of like the ways would kind of be like going through the cornfields of some of our neighboring states. You know, it's like you're going somewhere far away, but you have to kind of go through this little series of islands or these other small towns. It just kind of felt very similar to where we live geographically. So I thought that was kind of a cool tactic.
So just to echo some points, right? It's like the explanation and the lore and the backstory of the ways is interesting. You know, the fact that, you know, those male channelers that were seeking sanctuary in the steading to escape the taint that the Dark One put on the true source, or the male half of the true source, is a cool story, although it turned out that it didn't end well. The interesting thing that I liked was the dream sequence in chapter 43, right, where Baal-Zaman had the three figurines, and one was of, you know, Perrin with a wolf, and one was Matt with the dagger, and one was Rand with the heron-marked sword, right? And Rand fields it very well. He's like, you know, hey, I deny you. And Baal-Zaman says, each time we have stood like this, you have thought you could defy me. And I was wondering, like, so is he just like, because he is the father of lies, is he lying that in previous turnings of the wheel, you know, Luce Theron or whoever it happened to be, the dragon did side with the Dark One, or has this never happened before and he keeps trying with every turning? I don't think we know. I think we can guess based on the fact that the Wheel of Time is still in existence that the dragon has never sided with the Dark One, but I don't think we know that definitively. Maybe we do. I don't know. But and then when Rand talks to Matt about the dream, Matt's like, oh, I picked up the one with the dagger, and Baalsman was like, so this one is you. So now he's terrified that the Dark One knows him, knows who he is. So I can see how that would maybe cause somebody to lose some sleep. But the ways are interesting and terrifying, and I don't think in chapter 44 we get the full scope of why Loial is so nervous, but I think we also know that the worst is yet to come. So
yeah, one thing you touched on there when you were talking about the dynamic between the Dark One and Lews Therin, or the dragon, it really reminds me of the Dark Tower series with the Man in Black and the gunslinger or Roland, and just kind of this back and forth, and they do this over and over again. They play this their roles out. So it just reminds me of that a little bit, that they've done this time and time again, and is there something different that happens each time? This is one telling of the story of this one age, but
I think and to deviate slightly, a lot of people harped on the Dark Tower movie, but it was maybe just another cycle of that same struggle. It wasn't the one from the books. It wasn't an adaptation of what Stephen King wrote in those novels. It was another version or another cycle of those events. So I think when you have something like this, it's just there's so many uncertainties.
There was the concept of a way station in the Dark Tower, wasn't there?
Was it the train station?
Where
or am
I don't know. I thought there was something called the way station, but I'll have to look it up. We don't want to digress on that. But I thought there was something.
Might be. It's been a while.
But I like the take on it. We talk about those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like this is almost a personification of that message. We know this is kind of a common theme, and when Robert Jordan wrote this, 30 years ago, it probably was still something that was being written about, but he definitely did a good job with presenting it slowly and very purposefully in this manner. We didn't get all this information up front, but we knew that this was a Wheel of Time, and we're getting this sense as we're reading through it that what has happened before is happening now and will happen again. So I kind of like or maybe it won't happen again. I think that's kind of up to the reader's direction at this point in the book. But it's an interesting read that Rand seems like an unlikely hero, and I'm kind of curious to know how he is being groomed, on the loom of the Wheel of Time to.
Good analogy.
I don't know.
I like that.
Face balls up.
Yeah. Rand is one too that it's been a while since I've read these, and I liked him in the first book, but I feel like he just gets a little more. They're less interesting each book. There's other characters that become infinitely more interesting, but the story still centers around Rand, but he just doesn't seem. He changes so much through the books.
I think especially in books 2 and 3, he becomes, and I'm not going to venture into spoiler territory here, but he seems less interesting and more annoying, and then he sort of rebounds as he kind of finds his footing and figures out the path that he's on. But yeah, I agree that Matt and Perrin and even Egwene and Nynaeve have very interesting arcs that could have been their own stories. They could have been their own books.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have all of these amazing characters with these great arcs piled on top of each other, it's no wonder this thing is 14 books, right? Because so much happens. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. the I was gonna say something. God, I'm gonna drink.
You have a pony
I'm gonna
behind you,
drink.
Brian.
I know it's
What
kind of
the
freaking me
heck is
out.
happening?
Hello, pony.
Is that Bella,
It's Mandarb.
or is it the dragon?
The red dragon. Whoa, oh, there it goes. Man, so much excitement. I feel like this has happened before and it will happen again.
Yeah, it probably will.
The wheel wills.
Make sure you thank your wife for that. That was good.
So in chapter 43, I think this is where they stay up, they learn about the ways, they talk a lot, and then it feels kind of like the fellowship moment in Rivendell when they're all kind of figuring out what to do, and it's kind of up to each of them to make their own decision. I think Moraine leaves it to them that this is the way we need to go. Are you coming with us or not? And each person kind of makes their own decision. And I thought Egwene said something. Oh, I'd have to find it. I thought I wrote it down, but basically, like, where you go, I'm gonna go. That we're in this together.
That in that sequence, Rand was the first one to say, like, okay, yeah, let's do it, because Moraine's like, we can go do this, and we can try and head the Dark One off at the pass, or you can continue running, and maybe you'll get away, maybe you'll die, maybe the pattern will not allow you to run. We just don't know. And he's like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Egwene said, whatever involves you involves me.
Yes.
So it was basically, yep, I'm in this with you.
That was my favorite Egwene moment of the entire book so far, because she seemed like she was kind of annoying at the very beginning, trying to come along on this journey, and then she had that really weird moment when they were in the Tinker camp, and she never really sat well with me until now. I feel like she's finally, back on track, and it feels like she's just a more complete, solid character.
And she's the youngest in the group too, isn't she? She's I think she's a couple years younger than Grandma and Taryn, if I remember right.
For sure. But
pretty sure.
They're all pretty similar in age between the four of them.
Yeah, they're close, but
she
I
might
thought she
be
was
the youngest. And the only reason why I think she might be younger, to Chip's point, is when they were talking about the Beltane Festival. I know they talked about her hair not being in braids. And so that makes me think that she's pretty young. So.
Yeah, but then she was, once she did get it braided, she was quick to take the braid out once they were on the road. And
yep.
So, if I can go back to, well, I guess not back to, but like the dream, because I think the dream is important because it's evolving, right? Because we get to,
and we don't know that Perrin had this dream, right?
I think it's safe to assume he did, but yeah, we don't know. But
we don't know.
We only know about Matt
and
Rand, but Perrin was talking about the hunting and the blight, and so I didn't know if the wolf dream or
if the wolves
connection with the wolves may have protected him from the dream.
That's a good point. But it's like each and to the point I made earlier, it's like each time we do this, you think you can defy me, and it's like the Dark One is called the Father of Lies, so he's. I think it would be a stretch if we could assume that we take the Dark One at his word and say, oh yeah, in previous incarnations, the dragon did side with the Dark One to do whatever it was that he wanted to do, destroy the Wheel of Time, kill the cycle, blah, 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 whatever. Right.
He's untrustworthy.
It makes you stop and think, you're like, wow, is he lying? Is he not lying? And if you were in Rand's shoes and you were in this dream and you were hearing this, what would you do? It's like, hey, you're gonna die. You can join me and have this. Otherwise, I'm gonna go to Tarvalin and I'm gonna enslave all these Aes Sedai that want to prop you up as this Messiah, and I'm And some of them are going to be, screaming for eternity in the pits of doom or whatever. It's like, it's not a very cheery picture. And yet Rand is like, no, I deny you. You can go F yourself, right? So props to him. Because if it happened to one of us, we'd be like, oh, geez, self-preservation is high on my list. I don't know. That just it's something to think about, right? Because I don't think we know specifically or empirically that.
Yeah.
How has this gone in all previous cycles? How many cycles has it been? What does each one look like, right?
And at this point, the Dark One still doesn't know which
That's
kid
true
he's
too.
after. But Matt makes the mistake of actually picking up his figurine, and the Dark One's like, "Oh, that's you." And then all of a sudden, Matt's face is on the figurine, and I thought we said when he touched it, he could feel himself like touching his own face. I mean, it got kind of creepy in there, but
does putting a face to the figure actually tell him if it's the one he's looking for or not? I don't think we know that, right?
I don't think it tells him which one he's looking for, but I think he puts a face to it draws him closer, or maybe, he makes him more susceptible to something.
Yeah.
You got to figure what Matt's been through too with the dagger and all this stuff. So was it a moment of weakness, or was it just, Matt's own curiosity that he can't, really control it? It's just kind of who Matt is.
Speaking of Matt,
right?
Like he talks to Rand at some point, and he's like, "Is it just me, or is Perrin acting a little weird?" And I think like he and Rand both are like remembering the effects of the dagger and how it made him extremely paranoid of everybody else, and he's like, "Am I sinking back into this, or is this like actually a thing that's happening?" And Rand's like, "No, you're not wrong. He's because and let me."
He has yellow eyes.
It's
exactly
that
different.
and
it's his mannerisms and his,
really reserved.
When they walk into the ways, it says Perrin is as calm as a warder, or preparing to leave for the ways. Perrin is as calm as a warder, and Matt seems to be afraid to be alone, like even like feet away from people he doesn't want to be. So and that's where he's like, what's going on? Because I think anybody who is just reuniting with Perrin is going to be like, something's different. And it's not just the eye color, it's the demeanor, and because he's seen some shit, right? He killed a couple of white cloaks. He figured out he can talk to wolves.
Yeah.
He's almost like a completely different person than when that he left the Two Rivers.
Yeah. Should we cover like the ways themselves a little bit here? Because that's like the last part of that final chapter, right? It's like
the whole where they find where the grove was, and Loial's upset to see what has happened to it, but then I kind of imagine it like the Stargate, from the movie, that once they kind of open it up, it's kind of this shimmering wall that they walk through and enter. But yeah,
and like his realization when they get to the Waygate, and he's like angry, and this is huge for him because he's like this passive, gentle, and it reminded me of Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. Is like, many of these trees were my friends.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. He's like he's angry at what has become of this gate, because it is such a symbol or an important thing from his people, right?
Now locked up in a basement.
Right. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I belched.
I can't remember. Do we get a sense of Loial gets upset in there, and does the stone start to shake, or does I can't remember if that's
he pounds one of the columns.
That was it. Okay.
And yeah. But when they get into the ways themselves, when they actually cross over, and it's creepy, right? And
So curious to see how they do it in the show.
I earmarked
Right.
something here that I want to read real quick. Page 559 for those of you with the hardcover. And this is where they start to enter the ways, right? It's like, as she moved to one of the walls, Rand realized that the wall was different from the others. They were ordinary brick. This was intricately worked stone, fanciful swirls of leaves and vines, pale even under its coat of dust. The brick and mortar were old, but something about the stone said it had stood there long, long before the brick was fired. Later builders themselves, centuries gone, had incorporated what already stood, and still later, men had made it part of a cellar. So it's, like this entryway, like people like built around it in this cellar after the grove was gone. And just like the elegance and the majesty of what it is, the fact that it still shines through, I think is interesting. So, but yes, when they get in there, right, it's like, they have their torches and they've gone through, and it's like the darkness seems to like absorb the light, so they can only see like a certain radius around them, and they can't tell really what's happening. And it's disconcerting is probably an understatement.
Well, and it's creepy too how they find how the waves are just slowly decaying, and that there's all this damage that they find, and I don't think it's this chapter, but coming up they realize, it'll be a minor spoiler, that other things have been using the ways recently, and it's just and then this one basically ends that they come to the end of the road. It's just the thing drops off and the bridge is broken, so they have to find another way. Which I'm glad there's more than one way in the ways, but
yeah, otherwise it'd just be called the way and not the ways.
I know.
So,
There'd just be one bridge.
Yeah.
I did get some Moria vibes out of
That's
this.
a good point.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
It seems like they're kind of trying to take a shortcut from A to B, and who knows what creatures they might find in the middle.
There's no Balrog, but there's something here.
Well, and they even mention Masha Shin, the Black Wind, right? You don't know anything about it, but it's mentioned, and it's unpleasant to say the least. But yeah, the last thought Rand has kind of before they get to that jagged bridge, or what used to be the bridge, was Rand began to think that the ways were not as bad as Loial made them out to be. which is a great way to say shit's gonna go down. So
yeah,
and that
shouldn't think that way.
That is what we're going to cover next week. So, we thank you for watching. We invite you to hit the like button. We also invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell to notify you when we post new content. In addition, we invite you to use the comment section. Tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like, tell us things that we may have misstated. We are nearing the end. This is the Sanderlanche of Robert Jordan's Eye of the World. So we hope you will see us through to the end and also figure out what we're going to be tackling next. We already know, you don't know, but tune in to find out. And in the meantime, Brian.
Allons-y.